Public spending and public choice. Well, we're not talking about public choice, just the public spending part, okay? There are a number of things that we want our government to do for us, okay, on our behalf. Okay? I mentioned a few of them last time, or the time before, but first off, we want maximum possible competition, okay? Maximum competition. Now, by the way, government functions can be divided up into two different classes: economic functions and political functions. In general, economics, positive economics. Political, usually normative, value judgments, okay, as we're going to see, all right? Now, first thing, we want maximum competition in the marketplace. We don't want monopolies, right? No monopoly. Why is that?
Because that's still competition, and that one economic group to control the price, quantity, decide everything.
Quite right. When you have one company controlling the market, they dictate to you what price you're going to pay, okay? But when you have maximum possible competition, can one company force you to pay a particular price? No, you can go to somebody else, okay? So what monopolies do is force us to pay a higher price. They can dictate it. Now, we do have some monopolies, not very many. If you want to travel by train from Boston to New York, how many choices do you have? One. Okay? If you want to mail a letter, how many choices? Just one, but now we have other ways of, sending information. Yes? Oh, you?
To make it clear for me, I work at Home Depot, and we always have to change prices because of lows.
Yes.
So when they have a lower price, we go lower.
You go lower too? Yeah. Do you raise your price when they raise theirs?
No, we set our prices.
But if they go lower, you lower yours, but otherwise you leave it, try to beat them. Yeah. There are some industries where there's minimal competition. These are called oligopolistic industries or markets, meaning there's only a few producers. Like how many companies in the world make airplanes, commercial airplanes? Just 2 or 3, right? 3, really? Okay, we got Boeing, we've got Airbus, and we actually have Embraer down in Brazil, makes aircraft too. That's an oligopolistic industry. There isn't enough business, there's not enough profit to support more than a few industries, okay? So by their nature, they become reduced in number, or they are reduced in number. But for the most part, we want lots of competitors, because that forces prices to stay as low as possible, right? That if you don't have the lowest price, you're not going to sell. Right? It also forces them to improve quality, right? Competition forces them to improve quality. If they produce a piece of junk and this company produces a nice thing, you're going to buy it from them, right? So it reduces, and of course, it increases the number of choices that we have. Okay, so we want maximum competition. It's good for consumers. Lower prices, better quality, more choices, all right? We need a legal system that enforces this. So we have what are called antitrust laws. The government, this is the government's job, to put in place a legal system that encourages competition, and so really what we're looking at is a legal system, okay? Maximum competition and what was the other thing? Protect our property rights, right? Remember I talked about that? To protect our private property rights, so that we have confidence that if we invent something or we build something, that somebody can't just take it away from us. This is why when you invent something, right, you can patent it, you can register it with the government, and nobody can steal your idea. If they take your idea, you can sue them, right? Or you have the right to sell that idea to somebody else. It just cannot be taken by somebody else, okay? So we have a legal system that ensures maximum possible competition in the marketplace, and that our property rights are protected, okay? Anything else we want the government to do in a legal sense? I don't think so. Okay, provide a legal system that protects our right, promote competition, ensure economy-wide stability. Well, remember I mentioned this, that the two main things that we want our government to achieve is stable prices so that we don't get large amounts of inflation, right? What inflation does is destroy the purchasing power of our money. As prices go up, our cash buys less. So we want to keep inflation under control, and we want to have maximum possible employment, right? That everybody who has a job, wants a job, gets a job pretty much, so that we can be out here near or on the production possibilities curve, achieving maximum possible production. The more goods and services we produce per person, the more we on average can consume per person. Our standard of living rises, okay? Yes?
Does the government help support other businesses in starting by paying on their services?
They may, yes. They may provide, in fact, the government does provide lots of support services for small businesses in particular, right? And they also give tons of money to large corporations too, don't they? Yes, they do, okay? Yes, it depends on value judgments, okay? Value judgments. Now, in addition to keeping employment high and inflation low, we expect that, by the way, we go through these cycles of economic cycles of growth, expansion, and contraction. It's like a breathing organism. So when we have booms and recessions and booms and recessions and booms and recessions, in general, we want the trend to be upwards, okay, over the course of time, that the economy grows so that we have, again, higher standards of living. So we expect government to take action that ensures over the course of time that we have a growing economy. Okay? So these are the economic functions of government: to provide a legal system that prevents monopolies. By the way, I worked for a company that had a monopoly for 40 years until it was broken up by the U.S. government. It was the longest antitrust, anti-monopoly court case in U.S. history. Okay? Went on for 40 years. Imagine that. I worked for a company called United Shoe Machinery Corporation, and they made machines to make shoes. And they were the only company in the United States that made machines to make shoes, to speak of, okay? So they had a monopoly. So the government said that's not allowed. They forced them to break in half, to split in half, that they had to create their own competitor, okay? The American shoe company, yes. And within 10 years, they were both out of business. Yes, I was unfortunate to work for them in the last couple of years. I got laid off by them. Who's making the machines now? The Italians are making the machines now. Okay, yeah, and the Brazilians primarily. Okay, for the most part. Yeah, the shoe business went overseas, right? And the company that I worked for recognized too late that this was happening. They hired me to try to help them become global, international in nature. I mean, it wasn't just me, right? They hired me, and I was working with some other people, but it was too little, too late. And 2.5 years after I started with them, I'm pretty sure they went out of business completely. But when I joined them, they were laying people off right and left. In fact, a guy said to me, a guy that was working for me, he said, "This is no business for a young man." Okay, and I was a young man then. And he was right. I didn't even last a year. Okay? They laid me off within 11 months. Oh, well. I wanted to kill myself then. You know why? Because I'd only been working for 11 months. I'd been laid off by the last company. I'd been out of work for 7 months before that. So when they laid me off, I was like, open that window. I am jumping out. Okay? I was on the 3rd floor. But anyway, I'll talk about that when we talk about unemployment. Okay? All right. Now, there's another thing that we want the government to do also, okay? And that's provide what are called public goods. Okay? Now, public goods are different from private goods in that when you have a private good, it is the right to use that good is exclusive to you, okay? That I have a car, you can't drive it unless I let you, right? You can't take it if you want to. But a public good is not exclusive. Anybody can use the public good. Think of a park, okay? Park can be used by anybody. So there are a number of different characteristics between a private good and a public good. In particular, private goods are subject to the principle of rival consumption, okay? Rival, we are competitors. Consumption, consuming goods and services. What that means is that if I buy a good, like a shirt, okay, you can't. It reduces the amount available for other people. My consumption of that good reduces the amount available to somebody else, okay? That's not true of public goods. Public goods can be consumed by many people without reducing the amount available for somebody else, okay? Now, my favorite thing about a public good, now a public good, by the way, public goods have to be produced by the government. The reason being is that private companies can't make a profit on them. And the reason why they can't make a profit is because they cannot prevent what are called free riders, okay? Free riders. It's just what it says. I get to ride for nothing. I get the good without paying for it. You cannot prevent me from getting it, okay? My favorite example is, okay, a lighthouse, okay? Would a private company produce a lighthouse and collect money from ships that pass by it? No. How can you force them to pay, okay? You can't. I could say, I don't need your lighthouse. I've been sailing around these waters for 40 years. I could do this blindfold. I don't need your lighthouse. I'm not paying you any money. I can get it for nothing, okay? I can get it for free. You can't force me to pay for it. So if people can get it for free, how many are actually going to pay? Nobody, okay? So would a private company produce this? No, okay? Private companies don't produce these things, but we need them because they provide benefits to society. So the government will produce these on our behalf because private companies can't make any money, okay? And the reason they can't make it is because I can get this lighthouse light no matter what. You cannot prevent me from getting it, all right? So public goods are goods that have to be produced by the government, and in general, they are not subject to the principle of rival consumption. Just because I'm sailing my boat by this lighthouse, does that mean that there's less light available for you? No. Does that mean fewer boats can go by? No. Okay. Does additional boats reduce the amount available for anybody else? No, they don't. But if I'm talking about buying a particular item, yes, my purchase of that item reduces the amount available to somebody else. And you cannot get that item without paying for it. Okay? So the principle of rival consumption does not apply to public goods, only to private goods, okay? And private goods are mutually exclusive. I'm wearing this shirt, you cannot, okay? But public goods are not mutually exclusive. I can enjoy the light, you can too, okay? Yes? Public transportation is a quasi-public good, okay? There are some that are in between. Typically, these types of goods provide lots of what they call positive externalities, benefits to society as a whole. So they will be produced by the government. But you could prevent people from using it without paying, right? Roads are a perfect example. Roads, highways provide wonderful benefits, right? Allow us to engage in commerce and go here and there a lot quicker, cheaper, right? Could government make you pay to drive on those roads? Yeah, and the hell they do, right? Try going on the Mass Pike for free, right? Okay, so these are quasi-public goods in that they have a lot of characteristics of public goods, but they're not, strictly speaking, meet all of the characteristics, okay? You can. Well, we'll get to that, okay? Now, there are two fundamental characteristics. Public goods can be used by more and more people at no additional opportunity cost and without depriving any others of the service of that good. What does that mean? That once I built this lighthouse, does it matter how many boats go by? Is it going to cost any more? No, it is not, okay? So there are no additional costs once the public good is in place. Like a park. Once I build the park, it doesn't matter how many people go in there. It's not going to cost any more, okay? All right? So public goods are goods that are not subject to the principle of rival consumption. One person's consumption of it does not reduce the amount available for anybody else, and they can be consumed by more and more people at no additional cost. Okay? The most important factor, however, is that it is difficult to make a profit on public goods. Okay? Like I said, that there are some goods that you cannot prevent free riders. You cannot prevent people from getting that good for free. So it's difficult to design a system for collecting money based on how much people value that good, okay? So we get public goods like libraries, right? Roads, national defense, right? Do you have to pay taxes to be protected from Al-Qaeda? No, you don't, okay? You're going to be protected anyway. You don't have to pay anything. All right? Or anybody else that wants to blow you up. Right? You know, that bombing here was a terrible thing, right? Terrible thing. So many people were badly, badly hurt, right? And not to mention those poor 3 people that got killed. But I kept thinking about, you know, if this was Iraq, that'd be a good day, right? Yeah, that same day in Iraq, how many people got killed? Any idea? 30-something, right? So, at any rate, it's a matter of relativeness, right? It's all terrible anyway. Okay, so it's difficult to design a collection system to make people pay for using it based on how much they value it. I'm going to get it anyway. National Public Radio. You familiar with National Public Radio? Right? I'm home. I get a call from NPR, and they say, "Hi, we're doing a fundraiser. Mr. Sheehan, do you listen to NPR?" No, as I turn the radio down. Okay. I don't have to pay, but I'm going to get it anyway. Right? Okay. So we need government to provide these public goods because they provide lots of benefits, okay? But private companies will not produce them, at least not in sufficient quantities that we would desire to have because they can't make any money, okay? So we need government. That's one of the economic functions of government. The other economic function of government, and I left this for the last even though it's in the beginning, is because it takes a lot longer to go through this bit, is that sometimes the price system fails. It fails to properly allocate resources. Remember I said that it's a wonderful system for ensuring that we make just the right amount. Not too much, not too little, okay? But sometimes, because of the existence of what are called externalities, the price system results in too much or too little being produced, okay? Too many resources going to the production of the good or too little. The reason being is that there are third parties being affected, okay? They are external to the transaction. They are not sellers, they are not buyers, but they are either getting a benefit without having to pay for it, or they're paying a cost even though they're not buyers, okay? All right? Now, trying to think of a good example. I'm not even sure the book uses this example of steel production, okay? Right? That the steel mill, if you lived near a steel mill, okay? You ever seen a steel mill? No? I used to work in Chicago, and I worked for an industrial machine tool manufacturer, and they gave me the opportunity to go down and see the U.S. Steel plant down in Gary, Indiana one day. Absolutely amazing. I mean, just absolutely amazing, the scale of operations. There was something like 40,000 people working in this one steel mill. And the furnaces, I mean, everything is huge, right? Fires like going, it was like the Mordor, Lord of the Rings or something. Just an amazing sight to see, okay? Right? But if you live near that, are you going to suffer? Yeah, you're going to have pollution, okay? As a matter of fact, I have a really good example. I live out in Lunenburg. Okay? You know, ever hear of Lunenburg? No, most people in Massachusetts don't know where Lunenburg is. Here's the state. This is Cape Cod. Okay, Boston is here. Yeah, you're familiar with Worcester? Worcester? Okay, I live here, north of Worcester, near the New Hampshire border, 40-something miles away. Okay, that's because I used to work out on. Oops, left it out. I used to work out here on 495 when I worked for a corporation. It was less than half an hour from my house, so it's perfect. But now, like, hour and 2-hour drive in if I come in. But when my wife and I were first looking, we moved up here from Florida. I don't miss Florida right now, but I was sure missing it this winter. Anyway, when we moved up here, we were looking for houses, okay? And here's the town. And here's the house that they kept showing me, okay? And we would come this way, and we would come this way, but, and we might even end up somewhere here, but we never went that way. I didn't know anything about that road, okay? The reason being is that right here, near my house, right around the corner, is a gravel pit, rocks. They make rocks here, okay? In fact, over here they've got a big area that they blow up, right? I'll be in my house and all of a sudden it'll be ba-boom! Everything shakes, things fall off the walls, right? They didn't tell me about this place, okay? It's even worse, because on Thursdays and Sundays there's a gun club on the other side of the hill from me. I didn't know about that either. Don't worry, you'll get used to it. Okay. So I bought this house, and my wife and I did, and Route 2 is here, okay? This Route 2 to Boston, okay? And every day on my way here, I have to pass through this operation where they make rocks, and they sort these rocks into different sizes, huge piles, and giant trucks come, you know, these big tractor-trailer trucks, semi-trucks, these big, huge dump trucks, and they pick up the gravel and they take it off to different construction sites everywhere, okay? Now, the roads on the highways are supposed to look like that, okay? They're called macadam roads by some Scotsman named Macadam. And the idea was that when it rained, the rain would flow off, right, and not puddle up. So they make the roads slightly concave. Near my house, Route 2 looks like this. You know why? Because these trucks weigh 50, 60,000 pounds. And on a warm day, the tar softens and the trucks depress the road. Until they paved it, I could literally get on Route 2, I could close my eyes and go for about 1.5 miles because it would stay right in the grooves. Right? Okay? Now, in addition, when I go through here, my car gets filthy. Maybe I would wash my car once a month, every 6 weeks, but because I'm driving through here, I've got to wash my car every other week, okay? Twice a month now, instead of once every month and a half. Because of this operation, I'm paying a cost. Not only do I pay higher cost to have my car cleaned, my house cleaned, okay, because lots of this stuff gets over there. Maybe I break some stuff too. Things have fallen off the walls and broken. But I also, who's going to pay to have this road fixed? Taxpayers, me, amongst others, right? So because of this gravel operation, I don't buy it, and I don't work there. I'm not a supplier or a consumer. But I'm paying a cost because of the existence of this gravel pit. Is the manufacturer paying that cost? No, I am, okay? So if we have supply of gravel, okay, does this supply curve reflect all of the true costs of producing this good? No, it doesn't, because it doesn't capture what I am paying and my neighbors are paying as a result of the production of gravel, of rocks, okay? If I was able to force the producer of gravel to pay my costs, well, the town could easily go and say, listen, you're wrecking the roads of the town. We're going to tax you to compensate for these you know, so that the taxpayers don't have to foot it. And we're going to actually charge a little bit more so that Mr. Sheehan can get his car cleaned. If costs went up for the manufacturers of gravel, what would happen to this supply curve? It would shift in, okay? And what would happen to the equilibrium quantity? It would be reduced, okay? If we do not correct this situation, the gravel pit produces too much because it doesn't bear all of the true costs of producing this good. External parties, third parties, myself, are paying a cost associated with the production of this good that is not being paid for by the manufacturers. And because the manufacturers are not paying all of the true costs, the supply curve is too far to the right. And that means that equilibrium quantity is greater than it would be, okay? That when we have a negative externality, okay? Negative, somebody is paying a cost. Externality, they are not buyer or seller. We produce too much, okay? Too many resources go to the production of this good, okay? Because the supply curve is too far to the right, because the manufacturers are not paying all of the costs. I'm paying part of the cost, okay? If we can force them to pay the costs, the supply curve will shift in, price will obviously go up, and the equilibrium quantity produced will fall. Fewer resources will be devoted to this good, okay? Now, how can we correct this negative externality? What can the government do to correct this situation of overproduction? Yes, exactly right. Government can place taxes on the manufacturers, which raises their costs, will shift the supply curve in, and the equilibrium quantity will fall. Raise taxes on the producer to compensate the community for their additional costs, okay? There's another thing that we could do. We could regulate it, okay? We could say, we could limit by law the weight of the trucks that come out of here so that they don't destroy. And we could force by regulation them to keep the road clean so that my car doesn't get dirty, okay? So we can correct negative externalities by either regulation to eliminate the externality. If you pollute, we shut you down, okay? The steel mill pollutes the community, we close the steel mill down if they don't stop polluting, all right? By either regulation or by taxation, okay? So without correcting it, we have what's called a market failure. The market fails to properly allocate resources. In this case, too many resources go to the production of the good, okay? We also have positive externalities, where people get the benefit of the good without having to buy it, okay? If you could get the good without paying for it, would you? Sure, okay? Would you be reflected in this demand curve? No, you wouldn't. You're not in the market to buy it, okay? This only reflects people with the demand to buy. But if you get the good for free, you're not going to be in this demand curve. If I can force you to pay for that good, what's going to happen? You're going to be in the demand curve. It'd be like an increase in the population of people in the market for this good, okay? And the demand curve would shift out and more would be produced. But without fixing that, you produce too little, okay? Vaccinations, they talked about that, right, in the book, okay? My brother, I have a brother who's a chiropractor. Actually, I have two brothers that are chiropractors. But one of them just called me up. He got a job at a college, Mount Wachusett, which is less than half an hour from my house. He's going to move here from New York. I was like, cool, awesome. Okay. Now, my older brother, the chiropractors adjust your back, you know, crack your back for you, twist your head around, right? I love them. They have helped me out. My brothers helped me out plenty. But they'll also tell you that they can cure just about anything. It's not true. And they like to call themselves doctor, okay? Yeah, they're a doctor of chiropractic. Okay? My brother, the doctor of chiropractic. My brother flunked out of UMass Boston, okay, with a .9 GPA. Eventually went back and took a bunch of courses so we could go to chiropractic school, but never got a college degree. And then he went and he spent 2 years in chiropractic school, and now he gets to call himself doctor. I'm like, you're a doctor, I'm a doctor. All right? I got more education than you do. Right? You only school 4 years. I spent 6 in school. Okay? But I don't get to call myself doctor, but he does. We were over here at the, I met him for, we watched a hockey game a few years ago, right, at the Garden, and he's not a big hockey fan, so after the first period, he was like, let's get out of here. But his car was back parked in the lot. He goes to the lot attendant, and he shows him his license. He says, I'm Dr. Sheehan. I have a medical emergency. I need my car. I was like, man, if you only knew. At any rate, he was Mr. Natural when he was younger, you know, totally organic, raw milk, right, stuff like that, right, okay? And he didn't believe in vaccinations at all. Why? Because, believe it or not, you have like 0.5% or 0.1% chance instead. If you get a vaccination, 0.1% of the people will actually contract the disease, okay? So he was like, why take a chance? And he didn't have to, right? Because when he sent his kid to school, there's a classroom with 30 kids, 29 of them had their shots. Only his kid didn't have it. You know why? He sent in a note. My son, Teddy, his name was Edward James Sheehan IV, okay? Call him Teddy Quattro. Okay, he's a really cool kid. Anyway, he said, my son has had all his shots, signed Dr. Sheehan. Right? So he didn't need it. But could his son get the disease if everybody else has been inoculated against it? No. There's nobody else can give it to him. If you all get the shot, I don't need to, because you can't give it to me because you can't get it. Okay? So I don't need that shot. So he gets the benefit without being part of the demand for it. Okay? His kid is protected even though he didn't buy it. What if we could force him to buy it? Now, sorry, we're not going to just take your word for it. You've got to produce some medical evidence of shots, okay? Or you have to buy, or you can't come to school. Then he would be forced to buy it. And what would happen? The demand curve for this good would shift out, and more would be produced, okay? But without correcting this positive externality, where third parties get the benefit of the good without having to buy it, okay, we produce too little because the demand curve doesn't reflect all of the people who really get a benefit. If we can force them into the curve, force them to become customers, the demand curve will shift out, price will rise, and more of this good will be produced. Okay? So, without that, when we have a positive externality, we produce too little. Okay? If you have a hard time, remember it. I'm positive it's too little. Okay? I'm positive it's too little. If we have a positive externality, third parties, not buyers or sellers, get the benefit of the good without paying for it. They have a positive effect on outsiders. Okay? So we tend to produce too little. This is true for education also. Okay? Does the society benefit if everybody gets at least a high school education? Sure, of course. We're more productive workers, more efficient, we understand how things work, right? We're better citizens in general, okay? But there are many people who might not go to school through to where they have to be, right? How can we force people to stay in school at least until, what do we have to, you know how late, when you can leave school here? After the 6th grade, I think. You don't have to go to high school here. How ridiculous, okay? That's the worst decision a kid could possibly make, to drop out of school, okay? unless he's won the lottery or he's Bill Gates or whatever, right? But you need education, right? Okay? So without it, without forcing people to go to school, we would produce too little education. Okay? We would produce too little education. So we have, by regulation, require people to get an education, forcing the demand curve out. Okay? We also pay for it. Okay? We subsidize. Okay? That's another way to get more. Okay? That, let's say we are talking about vaccinations. The government, I mean, we have two ways to get out here, right? We could force demand to shift out. That would increase the amount, right? By forcing people to get it. We can also shift out supply. That the government could pay manufacturers to produce this. Price would fall and quantity would rise, okay? And that's essentially what they do. They subsidize the production of vaccinations. So that actually, and they also give it away for free, right? You don't have to pay for it, do you? I don't think so. Okay. So again, an externality can be corrected in one of two ways. By regulation. Sorry, you don't come to school unless you can prove you've had your vaccination. Demand for vaccination shifts out. More vaccinations will be produced and consumed. Or by taxation. In this case, negative taxation. Negative tax is called a subsidy. Instead of taxing producers, they give money to producers. That lowers the cost of production, which will shift the supply curve out and will increase equilibrium quantity that way. More resources will go to the production of this good. Okay? When we have a positive externality, the demand curve is too far to the left. Remember, when we had a negative externality, the supply curve was too far to the right, so we produced too much. We need to shift it back in. When we have a positive externality, it's the demand curve that's out of place. It doesn't reflect everybody who gets a benefit from that good. So the demand curve is too far to the left when we have a positive externality, and we want to shift it outwards. Okay? Does that make sense? So when we have a negative externality, it's the supply curve that's out of place, too far to the right, producing too much. When we have a positive externality, it's the demand curve that's out of place. Not everybody who gets the benefit's buying it. So it's too far to the left, we're producing too little. Okay?
I'm just wondering about colleges. They don't follow the price system, right? Because as far as I understand, the college, the students community is growing.
Mm-hmm.
Prices are,
going up and up and up and up. I guess so. I think that's still supply and demand, though. Okay? That the more people that want to go to college, but they're also subject to inflation, inflationary pressures also, right? That as the costs of things, inputs, administrator salaries, maintenance of the buildings, taxes, whatever, as these things go up, they also have to raise your price. So I'm not sure you can say that they don't follow the price system. Some do, some don't. Public schools, no, right? But again, private schools have to be competitive somewhat with public schools, right? Yeah. Definitely go to the public school, okay? I spent, my son's education cost $250,000, okay? Yeah, he went to a private school for high school. That cost $100,000. And then he had 4 years of college, and that cost a further $160,000. So $260,000. He's a high school teacher. Okay. My wife are like, why do we send him to these expensive schools? He could have gone to the high school and to UMass. He'd be doing the same thing. Perfect. And I wouldn't be heavily in debt. I sacrificed my future for my kids. I paid for their educations. Actually, most of it. My daughter has since paid me back for some of it. Right, but him, I'm never going to expect any of it, ever, at any rate. This is the best deal in town, okay, for sure, absolutely. You get a great education here. Okay with that business? All right, externalities, okay? If we have a positive one, we're producing too little. If we have a negative one, we're producing too much. The whole idea has to do with resource allocation. Okay? Remember, the price system, generally speaking, results in just the right amount. And if we want more, we get more. Okay? But sometimes the market fails. Okay? We get a market failure because of the existence of externalities. Third parties that pay a cost, me, or get a benefit, my brother, without being buyer or seller. So it causes one of the two curves to be out of place, which means equilibrium quantity is too high or too low. Okay? Too high when we have a negative externality, too many resources are being used. Too low when we have a positive, not enough resources are being used to produce that good. All right, you guys, with that? Okay. Is that it for this chapter? Boy, moving right along. Competition, public goods, ensuring economic stability. Okay. And then we have political functions. Okay. Again, these tend to be normative. Okay. When we have a positive economics, those are economic functions of government. Maximum competition, protecting our property rights, providing public goods, and correcting externalities. Okay. But when we get into the political functions, now it's what should or should not be. Okay? Should or should not be. So the government will decide based on our desires. We should or shouldn't, we want or don't want, this is too much, too little, whatever. They will take actions on our behalf. Okay? So we end up, in terms of the political functions of government, in two areas. There are goods and services that at least a majority of the population, depending upon the time, believes that should be generally unavailable, right? Okay? Like Massachusetts has changed, right? Generally in the past, pot was illegal, now it's legal, semi, right? Okay? So our government has changed these laws based on our wishes. Certain goods are called, they used to be called demerit goods. Okay, demerit. Merit is something good, a demerit is something bad. Okay? And government would take actions to reduce or eliminate the sale and consumption of these goods. Okay? Typically make them illegal, right? Like illegal drugs, heroin, cocaine, things like contract murder. Okay, these are prohibited. Prostitution, okay? Prostitution is legal in one part of the United States, though, right? Do you know where? Nevada. It is not legal in Las Vegas. It is illegal in Las Vegas, but it is legal in the rest of Nevada. Okay, it is legal. Okay. Now, how about here in Boston? It's totally illegal. In New York City also, okay? This is based on our wishes, right? People of Nevada said, we think anybody should be able to buy sex. Okay? And here in Massachusetts and New York, we said nobody should be able to. Okay? Which system is working out better? Do you know? Well, I'll tell you which one is working out better. Okay? In Nevada, because it is a legal institution, sex workers are required to get monthly checkups, okay? Now, I haven't checked this out in a couple of years, but as of 3 or 4 years ago, there has been no known cases of any prostitute in Nevada transmitting HIV to a customer, okay? All right? Okay. New York City, where it is illegal, it's estimated that 90% or more of the prostitutes are infected with HIV, okay? Which system's working better? Okay. The war on drugs, okay, attempts to keep illegal drugs out of the United States, has cost American taxpayers billions upon billions of dollars. Okay? Who's gotten rich off of it? The cartels. Okay? Mexico is in danger of disintegrating because of this. All right? Has it effectively reduce the amount of illegal drugs available in the United States? No. Okay? It's a complete waste of money. All right? I like Amsterdam's approach. Ever been to Amsterdam? Really interesting place. Where marijuana and hashish are legal. I understand, I don't know if this is true, but I understand that you can go into a bar and in addition to ordering a beer, ordering whatever type of hashish you might like to have at the same time. I have seen people walking down the street in Amsterdam smoking a marijuana joint, and right by the cops, they don't even notice it, don't pay any attention. They have prostitution legal also. They have a whole city block that's full of storefronts, like like apartments with just big glass windows. Okay. Now, they've actually, no, that's something else. I was thinking about subsidized health. They're thinking about making that no longer subsidized anymore, but that's a different matter, okay? But I don't know if this has been good for Holland and Amsterdam or not, but I suspect it's better than the alternative, okay? Because when you make things illegal, bad people are attracted to it. Are they not? Yeah, people that are good at doing illegal things like to do that now too. Okay? And it increases the violence. Not only that, but take the situation like of heroin, okay? If you bought heroin on the street, do you know what you're getting, really? No. It could be anything. And it could be really impure, what they say stepped on very heavily, right? Reduced, diluted. Or it could be ultra pure. You use it one day, you use a lot because you need to. The next day, you use a lot, it kills you. Okay? There's no way to control the quality. A prostitute. You go to a prostitute this week, and next week you go again. You're going to find the same person at the same place? No. You're going to get a completely different person, different experience. Who knows what they're going to give you? Right? Okay. So these things that the government does politically on our behalf are products of normative economics, okay? That we don't think you should be able to do this. So the government will prohibit it, which immediately begins to create a black market, or they will tax the hell out of it to keep you from consuming it. Alcohol and tobacco, the prices of these are much higher than they would be without government interference by taxing the hell out of them, okay? And that's an attempt to reduce consumption. And by the way, these are excise taxes, and they're meant to go to the purpose of rectifying whatever problem the item's being taxed. In other words, if taxes on cigarettes are supposed to help people quit smoking, right? Taxes on liquor are supposed to help alcoholics recover, all right? Things like that, but rarely are they used like that. But the whole purpose, of course, is to reduce the quantity demanded by raising its price, okay? So the government, in terms of demerit goods, will either raise their price in order to reduce consumption by taxing it, or they will restrict access to certain people, right? You can't smoke cigarettes, supposedly. You can't buy them, at least, unless you're 18. You can't buy alcohol unless you're 21, right? We'll train you to kill people at 18, but you can't drink. Right? This is true, okay? Or they will make them outright illegal, prohibit both the consumption and the production, as in the case of things like heroin, cocaine, prostitution, and the like, okay? Merit goods tend to be things that are also public goods. Merit goods, parks, museums, good roads, street lights, police protection, national defense, things like that. Merit goods have to be generally produced by the government, again, because they are almost always public goods, okay? The government also engages in income redistribution, okay? They take money from people who are earning money and give it to people who are not earning money, okay? You guys will probably be paying for my retirement. When I retire and start collecting Social Security, it'll be collecting your money, right? Because you will be working and I will not be working, right? So your income is going to be taxed. You have to pay a Social Security tax, and that money goes to people who are retired and no longer working, right? We also have welfare, right? That if you don't have any income at all, the government will give you money, and we also have unemployment compensation. If you were working but lost your job, got laid off, the government will give you money. And where they get it from is they tax the employer and they tax workers. And they take money from people who are working and they give it to people who are not working. Okay? I'm okay with that. I don't know about you guys. Although here in Massachusetts, we not only give money to people who are not working, we give money to dead people. This is true. Didn't you read that scandal about the EBT cards? Yeah, they're making all kinds of payments to people who are dead. And the fraud in the system is so ridiculous. I mean, that it's just gushing millions upon millions of dollars. Anybody who wants to feed at the trough can pretty much get a place, right? Or at least that's the way it was, right? So at any rate, government taxes people who earn a lot more money at a higher rate, as we're going to see in a few minutes, right now, actually, okay? They tax, if you earn a lot of money, you pay a greater percentage of your income in taxes than if you earn smaller, okay? In other words, we're going to move on to that fact right now because we're pretty much done with the economic and political functions of government. We're going to talk about that particular political function, economic function too, taxation, okay? Taxing us. By the way, where does the government get most of its money? Do you know? Whose taxes do they get? Pardon me? That's a common misconception, but it's actually individuals, okay? Federal income tax that we pay, all right, is the major source of revenue for the federal government, okay? They have some other sources, but for the most part, now the states don't always have income tax, okay? Massachusetts, the rate is what, 5 and something, I think, on regular income, 5.25%, okay? In Florida, there's no state income tax. I worked for this large multinational corporation down in Florida. It was headquartered here in Massachusetts, and they gave me a promotion. I was a district manager, a Latin America, Caribbean region, okay? And they promoted me to be more or less global manager. They moved me up to Massachusetts. I got a promotion, and I ended up with a cut in pay. This is true. The company had this attitude that we're going to give you a promotion, and if you do a good job, we'll give you more money. If you do a bad job, no more money. So they promoted me, and they moved me from Florida to Massachusetts. Okay? I didn't get an increase in my salary right away, but because I moved to Massachusetts, in Florida, I didn't pay any income tax. But when I got here, I now had to pay 5% of my salary. So I got a promotion and a cut in pay at the same time. People who moved to Florida, on the other way, they were really happy, right? Because they got immediately 5% increase in pay because they didn't have to pay taxes anymore. Not only that, but man, at that time, boy, they sold their houses here in Massachusetts and they moved to Florida and they bought palaces. I mean, because the price, that's why I moved to Florida. In fact, I left my job here in Massachusetts because, among other things, I knew I was never going to be able to buy a decent house here. But if I could move to Florida and find a house that was, and find a job that paid more or less what I was earning up here, I would be able to buy a house in Florida. And I ended up with a 30% raise. I found a job in Florida. I got a 30% increase in pay. I bought a really nice house, way better than I could ever dreamed of buying here in Massachusetts, okay? So not only did they get a 5% increase in their pay, but the cost of housing was so much lower that they could buy much nicer places to live in than they could up here, okay? But that was my plan, to move to Florida, spend a few years there, and then move back. And that's exactly what happened. My company moved me back here. They made me an offer I couldn't refuse. We want to promote you and move you back to Massachusetts. If you don't go, we're going to fire that guy that works for you. The guy that you hired to move down here last year from Massachusetts. He's going to lose his job if you don't take this one. So it's like, what the hell? So I took it, which was, it's been okay. I think I like it up here. Right? I do like Florida, though, except in the summertime. Oh, my God, it's brutal. It's hot and humid. Oh. Oh. Anyway, all right, so to pay for government, right, to maintain our legal system, to provide public goods, to deal with demerit and merit goods, whatever, okay, they need money, and where they get it is out of our pockets, okay? They tax us. Did you do your taxes this year? Yeah? Good. How'd you make out, all right? Yeah? I have to pay $4,500. That's not too bad. Huh?
So it comes out of balance due?
Yeah, balance due of $4,565. Okay. That's not too bad. It's about what I owed last year, okay, which is fine. I was happy with that. Actually, it wasn't a lot worse. Huh?
You didn't withhold enough.
No, I didn't withhold enough, no. My wife actually, was her company's fault. They didn't take enough. I can't remember. Was it Bunker Hill that didn't take enough out, or was it my wife's? I can't remember. One of the two didn't take enough money out, right? So, but fortunately, it wasn't that far off, okay? So, but in the past, I had to borrow money from my brother, the rich chiropractor. Everybody in my family is rich, but me and my youngest brother. Yeah. My oldest brother, he's an entrepreneur. He has owned and bought businesses and done all kinds of different things. Right now, he's still married. He has a very strange marriage. His wife lives on Nantucket. They own a house on Nantucket. You know that's worth millions. He has his own place on Cape Cod with like 5 acres of land. That's worth millions. And they only own one now, but they used to own 2 houses in Panama, okay? That's where he spent the winter in Panama while she worked on Nantucket in the summer. I mean, in the winter. He would go down to the tropics, and she'd stay up here and work. My next brother down, that's the chiropractor. Not only did he make millions, but he married millions. Then we have my sister. She also married money. Yeah, her mother-in-law, they own a house on the beach in Quincy. They own another house in a different part of the town, and they own a house in Florida, okay? So they're doing quite well. My younger brother, 20 years ago, he won $2 million in the lottery, okay? Yeah, nice, huh? Yeah, $2 million bucks. And he's a chemical engineer, works for Raytheon. You know he makes plenty. And his wife is a very well established and successful lawyer. So you know they got money coming out their ears. And then that leaves me. I thought my wife had money. And then my youngest brother, who never could figure out really what he wanted to do. He went from job, he is the most educated person. He's been in school for 40 years, doing one thing or another. Finally, he also became a community college teacher like myself. But he was in New York State, but he's moving to the Massachusetts system, like I said. But he doesn't have 10 cents. Like me. Thank God for my wife. My wife makes good money. Allowed me to stay home. You know, when I told her I was retiring, she was like, really? And I have to continue working? Well, can't both of us leave? My son says to me, after I told him, I said, I'm retired. He said, Mom okay with this? I said, so far. Okay, so far, so good. Yeah, retired 59 years old. Nice, huh? Yeah, excellent. Except I told you this. I retired, but I still teach as many courses a year as the full-time professor here. I have 10 courses a year here. So anyway, neither here nor there. All right, so taxes. Okay, do you know what they say? There's only 2 things certain in life. Death and taxes, right? You're going to die and you're going to be taxed before you do. All right? Now, we have the primary source of revenue for the government, both state and federal, are income taxes depending upon the state. New Hampshire has no income tax. Okay? New Hampshire also has no sales tax, right? which is why we go up to New Hampshire. By the way, I don't know if you know it or not, but if you buy things in New Hampshire, okay, on your tax forms, you're supposed to tell Massachusetts that you bought stuff in New Hampshire and pay taxes on that to Massachusetts instead. Sure. Why do you think we went to New Hampshire? Say what?
But if you buy a car or something, but it's
Yeah.
just like something in the house using it.
Yeah, if you buy a TV or a stereo system or a computer or something like that, they won't know, right?
Yeah.
And
If
you,
you buy a car.
yeah, but if you buy a car, you have to register it here, and then they know they're going to get you for the sales tax no matter what, right? I hate that. I hate taxes, honestly, but they're a necessary evil, right? Yes, question?
I was like, well, what if you just bought it off a private dealer?
You'd still have to register it and pay taxes on whatever you paid for it. Yeah, doesn't matter. Yeah, doesn't matter. In fact, they have people that specifically go around and try to catch people who live in Massachusetts but have their cars registered in New Hampshire, right? Internet's been, anything you buy on the internet's been tax-free, right? Up until soon. That's going to change. Yeah, that's too bad. Okay, government's got to get its cut, though, right? You got to pay the man, right? Okay. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, sure. That's exactly right. They're going to start taxing that stuff. Okay. What was I going to say about that? Taxing.
But the thing is, why is like the government is like very high interest for the student loans.
Student loans, they're paying high interest?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I still have $40,000 in student loans.
Yeah, they should
Paying for my kids. Huh?
they should encourage students more like.
Oh, yeah, absolutely they should. Of course. Definitely. It's making it very hard to go to school, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to get a return on that investment
So they
because the cost is so high and the rate that they charge you on your loans is not low at all. You know, you're paying 6% or more, right? So they're working against the system, okay? That they should be encouraging more education, right? Creating more positive externalities, more benefits to society as a whole. There are plenty of places in the world where you can get an education for free, all right? Where it's considered a right of every citizen to get a college education if they want one, without having to pay for it. I think that's the way it should be here, don't you? Hell yeah, sure you do. You don't want to pay, do you? Okay. Now, we have what's called a progressive income tax system, okay? Oh, by the way, New Hampshire has no sales tax and no income tax. Where does the state of New Hampshire get money? Property taxes. If you own property in New Hampshire, you're screwed. Okay? Because you're going to pay the bills for everybody else. If you just work in there and or buying stuff there, you're not paying any taxes, not making any contribution at all. So if you own property, that's where. I don't know about Massachusetts, not New Hampshire, but Florida gets a ton of money from the lottery too, right? In fact, one of the reasons why Florida schools have become really, really good is that all of the lottery money that they take in, most of it goes to the schools, okay? Which is really a good system. I was amazed. I thought Massachusetts had a great education system. And then I went to Florida and I was like, wow, this is amazing, right? My son went to a special school, Montessori school, right, that the state funded. My daughter went to a special school for gifted children, okay? Yeah, state supported, right? Paid for the transportation there and back. Yeah, my daughter in 6th grade, when she graduated from this special school for gifted students, won the principal's award for top student in the school. And after she got the award, she sang No Greater Love a cappella in front of an auditorium with 300 people. Imagine that for a 12-year-old? That's pretty good. I was proud of her. She's going to take care of her dad. I'm hoping. Of course, my dad was hoping too. But actually, my dad got lucky because I got other rich brothers, right? Sisters, they took really good care of him. At any rate, we have a tax system that says again, this is normative economics, value judgment, okay? If you have a little pie, we're only going to take a little piece. But if you have a big pie, we're going to take a big piece. Okay? What this means is, as your incomes rise, the percentage of your income that the government takes in taxes gets bigger. Okay? If you're not making much in the way of pie, you may not have to pay any, 0%. Okay? But if you are making a ton of money, anybody idea what the highest tax rate is? What percentage of your income or your dollar that you have to give up? 29? Is it something like that? 30? I think it's like 33, 35%. Okay. It changes every year. Yeah. No, they change it every year. The tax code changes every year. It is what?
This is, the 2013 tax year is over, so they don't know.
Oh, they don't know.
Because 2014 haven't come out.
Ah, okay, so we don't know what's going to be next year. All right. Does that, let's say that the highest rate is, we'll make it just 30%. Does that mean if you earn $100,000, you've got to give $30,000 to the government? No, it doesn't, okay? We have what's called a progressive tax system, meaning that as your income rises, that percentage of your income that you have to pay in taxes increases, okay? Your average tax rises. That percentage of your total income that you have to pay in taxes, that average tax rises as your income rises, okay? Here's what the government does. Now, these numbers are not accurate at all. I'm going to, just for the sake of illustration, okay? They divide our incomes into chunks of money, shall we say, into what they call tax brackets. Okay? So let's say from 0 to 10,000, that's one bracket. And then from $10,000 to 20,000, okay? K stands for 1,000, right? That's another bracket. And then from 20 to 30,000, that's another bracket. And then from 30,000 plus, that's another bracket, all right? For each bracket, they will assign a tax rate, okay? It's called the marginal tax rate. So for the first 10,000, the marginal rate is 0. For this 10,000, okay, one of these blocks is 10,000, okay? For that 10,000, the rate goes up to 5%. And then for that, the rate, 10,000, the rate goes up for 10%, all right? Your marginal rate increases at each higher tax bracket. We'll say it's at 20% here. Okay? So what that means is, let's say that you earn $10,000, okay? Your tax, you're going to get taxed at a 0%, so your tax itself is going to be 0, right? And your average tax, by the way, average tax is equal to total tax, okay, divided by total income. And then, of course, to get a rate, it's expressed as a percentage. You have to multiply by 100, okay, and that gives you a rate, all right? So what do we have here? If we earn $10,000, our total tax is 0, okay, out of 10,000, so we have a tax rate of 0%, okay? So the rate here, 0%. Now what happens when you earn, let's say, $20,000? On this first 10,000, you don't pay anything, 0. But on this next 10,000, you have to pay 5% of it in tax. So how much is your tax here? 5% of 10,000 is $500, okay? Now what is your rate? You've got $500 in taxes, total tax. Your income is $10,000. That's a rate of 2.5%. Okay? You all right with that? Okay. So now, as your income rises, your average tax increases. When you went from 10,000 to 20,000, your average tax rate went from 0 to 2.5%. Now, let's say you earned $30,000. On this last 10,000, you're going to pay 10%, or $1,000. Okay? Now you've paid $1,500 on a total income of $30,000. Okay? That's equal to 5%. Okay? 5%. Because it's the 10,000 plus the 500. All right? So as your income rises, what's happening? In the beginning, this pie, they didn't take any. For this pie, they took a little sliver. Now for this pie, bigger pie, they're taking a bigger piece. Okay? So as your income rises, you move into higher tax brackets with higher marginal tax rates, which means that you pay more of each higher level chunk of money as in a percentage. So as your income rises, so does your average tax. Okay? It's like if you got a D, you got an F on the first exam, right? What's your average? 0. F. On the second exam, let's say you got a B or a D. No, let's say a C. Okay? Now what's your average? It's gone up to D. Okay? Hopefully we won't have these issues. Okay? So that's our progressive income tax. As incomes increase, you have to pay a higher percentage. Now, I said that we have a marginal tax rate, okay? Marginal tax rate. I said that the brackets, each one of them, right, had its own marginal tax rate, all right? How do you figure out marginal tax? Well, marginal tax is the change, delta, in income, okay, divided by, I'm sorry, made a mistake, the change in taxes, sorry about that, the change in tax divided by the change in income. Okay, what does that mean? Well, let's say that I worked 40 hours, okay, I got paid $5 an hour, I made $200, and I paid $20 in taxes, okay, 20 bucks. So my tax rate is 10%, right? Now, let's say I work some overtime, and this time I work 50 hours. So let's say I didn't get paid any extra overtime, okay? I owed them time, all right? So I made $250. But instead of paying $20 tax, let's say that I paid $50 in tax, okay? Nah, I don't like that one. That'd be ridiculous. Let's say I paid, well, sake of argument, 40 bucks, okay? What's my marginal tax rate? What was I rated, what did I get taxed at? So the change in tax, I went from 20 to 40, so that's $20. And then the change in income, I went from 200 to 250, so that's $50. So what's my tax rate on that last? What's my 40%? Okay, 40%. 2 out of 5 is the same as 4 out of 10. Okay, so the way you figure out marginal tax rate, you take the change in the tax. How much tax were you paying? How much are you paying now? What's the difference? And divided by the change in income. How much were you earning? How much you're earning now? What's the difference? Okay? Now, if you're asked a specific question, what is the marginal tax rate? What does that mean? That means that's the rate that you paid on the last dollar you earned. Means that if you were in these brackets, 0 to 10, 10 to 20, okay? All right? And you earned $19,000, your marginal tax rate is 5%, okay? If you're asked, what does marginal tax rate mean? It means, what did you pay in taxes on that last dollar you earned, okay? On that last dollar. But if you have to figure out what is the marginal rate, it's change in tax divided by change in income. So somebody might tell you, well, last year I was in the 28% tax rate. Okay, does that mean I paid 28% of my income? No, that was my marginal rate. So if you ask somebody, what are you paying in taxes, and they give you a percentage, you need to know, are you giving me average tax? I ended up paying 18% of my annual income, my wife's and mine, in taxes. But that last dollar I earned, I had to pay 28 cents on it, 28% of it, okay? So marginal tax rate, you figure it out like that, but if you're asked a question, what does it mean? It's the rate that applies to that last money that you earned, that last dollar. Israel? The last dollar, because that last dollar will tell you what bracket you're in, okay? Now, all right, you guys okay with figuring out what's an average tax? Total tax divided by total income, and then you multiply it by 100 to get a percentage, okay? And then marginal tax, what are you paying in additional tax, and what are you earning on additional income, all right? Okay with that? Okay. We'll get some problems to do with that, of course, okay? So we have what's called a progressive system, okay? Meaning at each higher bracket, your marginal tax rate goes up. There is a regressive system, okay? I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but from 0 to, I don't know, we'll just say $70,000, you pay 7% of your income in tax. But above 70,000 plus, you don't pay any tax on that. Okay? So if you earn $10 million, how much tax will you have to pay? 7% of only the first 70. You have to pay $4,900. Okay? So if you earn $70,000, you pay 7%. If you earn $700,000, okay, oops, 700,000, how much do you pay? 0.7%. You earn $7 million, you pay 0.07%. Okay? This is Social Security. Once you have reached a certain earning level, they stop taking Social Security out of your income. Okay? I used to get a 5% raise or whatever it was, 6% raise in December, because by the end of November, I'd already earned $70,000. So in December, when I'm earning over 70, they're not taking Social Security out. So I'm getting a raise for the last month. Okay, it was 6%. I'm taking home 6% more in the last month. Okay, that was my old job, not this one. Okay, all right, you understand that? So if you're only earning $50,000, okay, what percentage of your income are you paying that tax on? You're paying it on 100%. You're paying 7% of 100. Okay, but if you earn $500,000, you're paying it on 0.7%. I'm sorry, you're only paying it on 90%. I'm sorry, on 10% of your total income. Okay, because after your first $50,000, you don't have to pay it anymore. So when we have this regressive system, higher income workers still pay the tax, but they pay it on a much smaller percent of their income. If you earn $70,000, you pay it on 100% of your income. If you earn $700,000, you only pay it on 10%. Okay? If you earn $7 million, you only pay it on 1% of your total earnings. All right? We also have a proportional. That's called a regressive. Okay? Your marginal tax rate goes down. When you have a regressive system, the more money you earn, the lower the percentage, the lower the average tax that you pay. Okay? All right? We also have a proportional where for every tax bracket, the rate's the same. So in essence, we really only have one tax bracket. Sales tax. Okay? It doesn't matter whether you spend $10 or $10,000. you're going to pay 5 and whatever .25% it is, right? That's proportional. Doesn't matter what the value is. Low value, 5 1/4. High value, 5 1/4. Okay. Sales taxes. By the way, when you speaking of demerit goods, right, like illegal drugs and prostitution, do you know that when you file your taxes, it says right there in the tax code, you must report all income from all sources, both legal and illegal. Yes, I made $1 million selling cocaine last year. Occupation, drug dealer. That's actually how they end up getting these people, by the way, right? This is why they end up in jail. It's true. It's because they don't know. It's not because they confess to it, but they say, I only earned $50,000 last year, and the government comes by, oh, really? How did you happen to buy this $2 million house? How did you get the 2 Porsches? How did you get the big boat? Okay? Clearly you earned a lot more. You've been evading your taxes. Off to jail you go. Okay? And that's what happens, absolutely. That's how they get them. They put them in prison, not for the illegal activities that they engage in, because they can't catch them. They put them in prison for tax evasion. Okay? You ever hear Al Capone, the famous 1920s Chicago gangster? That's why he went to jail, even though he was responsible for all kinds of illegal activities. They never caught him on any of them. They caught him for tax evasion, not paying all his taxes, and put him in prison for that. And that's where he died, in Alcatraz, right, in San Francisco Harbor. Do you know what he died of? Yes, syphilis, I think, was it? One or the other. A fitting end for an evil, evil person. Yeah. All right, any other taxes do we have? Capital gains tax, okay? What capital gains tax is a tax on the difference between what you paid for an asset and what you sold it for. Okay? Now, mainly this applied primarily, not exclusively by any means, but housing, okay? That if you bought a house in 1940, your parents did, right, and they paid $2,000 for it in 1940 here in Charlestown, and then in the year 2010, they sold it for what? $400,000. Okay? Now, if you sold this house in Charlestown in 1940, okay, if that's an average price house, what would you have to pay for a new house? On average, $2,000. Okay? In the year 2010, okay, this is an average house price in Charlestown. That if you sold your house and wanted to buy another one, you'd have to spend $400,000. Okay? In a real sense, housing prices haven't changed. In a real sense, this house isn't worth any more in 2010 dollars than that house was worth in 1940 and 1940 dollars. Okay? All right? That this is the average price of a house, and that's the average price of a house. In a real sense, you have not made any profit. Okay? Does the government care? No. You are going to pay a tax on $398,000. Okay? Now, what they used to do is that you had, if you made $398,000 on your house, you would have to buy another house that was worth more than $398,000. You'd have to roll that money back in. And they gave you a one-time exemption from the capital gains tax, so that when you finally sold your house when you retired and moved to Boca Raton, Florida, right, you did not have to pay taxes on your nest egg. Right, that this is the value that you've built up over the course of your life. It's all in your house, and the government's not going to take that away from you. That when you retire, you'll have this money. They've changed that now, that the exemption now applies to anything, I think, less than $500,000, that if you make more than $500,000 on the house sale, or it also applies to things like stocks, right, that if you bought IBM stock back in 1965, for $20 a share, and it's now worth, I don't know, $1 million a share, right? That if you sold it, you would have to pay capital gains tax on the difference, and that is still true. The government doesn't care about relative prices. They only care about absolute money prices. in terms of the capital gains tax. But what they've done today in terms of the houses is they've given you an exemption that if you make less than $500,000 on your primary residence, they won't tax you. Okay, I don't have to worry about that at all. They should pay me when I sell the house for a loss. Okay, right. So, but for any other thing, that's the problem with this. They don't. If you bought stock for IBM, it was $20 a share, and that was the average price of stock in 1965. And then today, the average price is $200. Okay, and you bought it then, and then you sold it there. In an absolute sense, you made $180. But that's average price, and that's average price. And in that sense, you really haven't made anything. The government doesn't care. They'd only care about the absolute difference between what you paid for that asset and what you sold it for, and they will tax you on that. Okay? What other taxes do we have? Corporate income tax. Now, let me ask you, okay? What's the difference between a corporation and the pizza shop? Anybody know? Yeah. In terms of ownership, think of it that way. Yeah. Pizza shop may be owned by one person. The corporation is owned by many. Okay? Corporations sell stock ownership pieces. If you buy stock, you're a part owner. Okay? So you buy into the corporation just like if you became a partner with the pizza shop owner. You're entitled to a portion of the profits. Okay? When the pizza shop owner makes money, he pays income taxes on that just like he would as if he was earning, for working. Okay? So he pays federal income tax, regular personal income tax. However, if you are an owner of a corporation, when the corporation makes money, they have to pay tax on that money. Okay? Then, with the leftover after-tax profits, they divide those up amongst the stockholders. It's called a dividend. Everybody gets a payment. I mean, they don't always give dividends. They may decide to pump the money back into the company to buy another company, build a factory, whatever. But if they decide to share the profits, then everybody who owns stock gets a portion of that profit. However, you have to include that as part of your income and pay personal income taxes on it. So if you are one owner, you pay taxes on your income, your profits, once. But if you are one of many owners, you have to pay it twice. Once when the company earns it, and then once when you get your share. Okay? Why is that fair? I don't get that. Okay? Why, just because I'm in a mutual fund and my mutual fund buys stocks, when they make a profit, I've got to pay taxes on that twice. Whereas if you just buy your own pizza shop, you only have to pay once. I don't think that's fair at all. Okay? But it's easy to tax a corporation because it's not a human. Oh, I take it back. They are human beings, right? According to the Supreme Court of the United States, corporations are people. Yeah, you know what, was it Stephen Colbert who said this? I'll believe corporations are people when Texas executes one.
When they have a corporation, sometimes the business happens, so they cannot take it to individual.
Yeah, there are different forms of corporations or organizations that they get rid of that tax burden. That's true. That's true. Okay. All right. What else do we have? We have any other taxes to talk about? Talked about Social Security, unemployment. Don't care about that. They don't mention the excise tax in here. No excise taxes. Excise tax. Are you familiar with the excise tax? I mentioned them earlier. They have them on. They put it on gasoline, automobiles here in Massachusetts. If you own a car in Massachusetts, you have to pay an excise tax. Okay, it's $25 per $1,000 of value of your car. So if they think your car is worth $10,000, then you have to pay $250 in excise tax to the state, to the town. Actually, that money goes to the town. And like all excise taxes, it's supposed to be used something related to what they're taxing. They're supposed to use it for roads. But do they? No. Not at all. When I moved to Florida, I moved in September, okay? And in October, I got an excise tax from the town of Ipswich, Massachusetts, where I was living, for my car. And it was like, you know, like $300 or something like that. I wrote back to him, and I wrote him a check for 3/4 of that, okay? And I wrote him a letter, and I said, listen, I moved, and here's proof. Here's my address. I sent him a copy of a bill I had gotten, right? I've lived in Florida since September 1st, so I'm only paying you 3/4 of the tax. Here's a check for 3/4 of it, okay? They sent that check back to me, and they said, no, Mr. Sheehan. You have to pay the whole thing, and then we'll send you some money back, okay? And I said, you had your chance. You're not getting another one, all right? I'm never coming back to Massachusetts. But you know what they do if you don't pay your excise tax? You can't register a car or renew your license here, okay? Huh? No, they won't, supposedly, okay? So I was going to move back from Florida. I was getting transferred back up here, and I was like, oh, no. They probably are still looking for me. In fact, there's probably a warrant for my arrest out in Ipswich. But I asked my father, he had a friend that worked for the Registry of Motor Vehicles. I said, please, can you ask her to find out, you know, am I in what's going to happen? She came back and they said, no, you're not in the system. We have no record of it. I'm like, oh, excellent. I don't have to live in New Hampshire after all. But I never did pay. I didn't pay it, no. Yeah, I wouldn't have any taxes, but I don't want to live in New Hampshire. I did live in New Hampshire for 3 years, but it was all right. But that was a long time ago. At any rate. All right, you guys, I think that's it for today.